Hello, everyone, and welcome to the very next edition of the Neuroheadz Podcast, Talking Heads. We are here today to give you an exclusive listening party to the brand new release out today on Neuroheadz. It's by Australian producers Fractal One. They're here today to have a chat, tell us all things Australian, explain to us why they all call each other cunts over there, but in an endearing way. And of course, we'll have a listen to the tracks and obviously see what you guys think as well. James and Ross, how you doing, buddies? You all right?
Doing pretty good. How are you?
Yeah, I don't know why I went into a bit of an Australian accent then. I should have thrown a good day in as well.
It's a natural flow, right?
Like, all right, mate. G'day, mate. You're right. How's things down under, guys?
Yeah, it's getting cold here actually. So because we're on the other side of the spectrum with regards to the weather, so it's getting chilly here at the moment, especially because Melbourne is just notoriously cold and wet and just kind of gross. So, well, I have to tell you that you're from the UK, I suppose.
So it's like obviously over in Australia, your summers are reversed to ours, aren't they? So your summertime's Christmas, things like that. But yeah, what is a chilly day in Australia? How is it outside? What is it? Something like, because over here we have 20 degrees, that's really warm, but over there that's usually quite a chilly day for you guys, isn't it?
Yeah, that'd be a bit cold. So cold so anything below 10 degrees, which may be nothing to it compared to what you get. Yeah, I'm like, we're complaining about it being cold, but it doesn't snow here, maybe up in the mountains. It's just like, it's this cold that kind of like bites you in the bones. It's like, just like, you know, it's a sharp cold, but it doesn't get cold enough to snow. No, it's just like hard to get out of bed in the morning. And Turkish winds coming up from Tassie and stuff.
Absolutely. I remember when I was there for summer, I went there at Christmas time, and it's one of the bizarre things I found about Australia is, I mean, obviously it looks crazy in 40-degree heat and a massive Christmas tree in the middle of Sydney city centre. That is the most bizarre thing ever. Sat on a beach on Christmas Day, that's one of the most amazing experiences as well. But I didn't see many Christmas decorations. I don't know if you've seen like the UK and USA, we go all out. There's Christmas trees, there's lights all around the street. Didn't see any of that when I was in Sydney and Melbourne.
In some of the suburbs, you get it. You definitely get it in some of the suburbs, but in the city, they don't really bust it out so much. Yeah, no, we definitely don't go all out the way they do it elsewhere in the world.
Fair play, fair play. Yeah, I did distinctively notice it was lacking in Christmas decoration, apart from the big city centre Christmas tree in Sydney.
I feel like maybe because we don't get a winter's Christmas, we're like, stuff it. We don't like Christmas then. We just don't put the effort in.
It just didn't feel right. I mean, it was very enjoyable, but as you can imagine, for us, we relate. I mean, everybody else does, don't they? They relate snow and things like that to Christmas. So yeah, it was definitely turned on its head for us. Absolutely. So let's get into a bit about the Australian music scene. When I went over there, Sydney was more or less like the drum and bass hub. I played for a night called Afterlife. It's a big up to those guys. Over there in Melbourne, what's the drum and bass scene like at the moment?
Yeah, so it ebbs and flows, really. It's been around for a long time. We've got a few crews who have been putting gigs on for quite a while, and it gets really big, and then it kind of like peters off a little bit, and then it comes and goes in waves. Melbourne scene's very interesting. We love psytrance here. We love techno, and we used to really love hardstyle, but that kind of got driven up to Sydney. So, you know, Candy Ravers
very big there, isn't it? Yeah,
with the fat pants and all that crazy stuff, which I actually used to be one of those. So in a past life. But yeah, so the Melbourne drum and bass scene, it's kind of weird. Like, it's kind of evolving all the time. You know, for a long period of time, we didn't like jump up, and now we kind of like it. And it's just like, we don't really know what we like. So yeah, I mean, some cool events come up from time to time, hosted by some, you know, really cool organizers and stuff like that. But yeah, like, we get a lot of the sort of bigger artists and stuff, but we don't get a lot of neuro, and that's a real big problem because it's like, you know, like when I was living overseas, it was so easy just to fly over to the Netherlands or go to the UK or go to, you know, wherever, Czech Republic, because we've both been to Let It Roll a few times. So I could get my fix there, but very hard to find neuro here, unfortunately. So it's a bit of a downside.
It's tough, isn't it, with Australia? I mean, obviously you've got such a beautiful country, but it is fucking hours and hours away from everything, isn't it? Because obviously it's sat there just in its own little pool in the middle of the ocean, away from Europe and America, where it's all going on with the music side of it. But you've done some traveling already for things like Let It Roll and stuff like that, yeah?
Yeah, so we went to Let It Roll in 2018 together, and we went to New Forms in 2017, and I think you've been to a couple more European.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been to Sun at Bass. I went to Let It Roll again, and I've been to Blackout XL, which was amazing. I went to Rampage almost twice, because the second time was just before COVID, and I almost got stuck in Belgium as well, but it took me about 72 hours to get home. But that was a fun experience.
So I've been to Rampage a couple of times as well, and the time that you're talking about would have been my third time there. Yeah. COVID struck obviously quite bad for that, but yeah, I remember my first time there. The snow was horrendous in the UK. We could hardly get out. I was very lucky to get one plane that was actually all right to leave. And from what I remember, hundreds of flights out that were going to like Belgium and stuff like that. Like I met a load of UK people that weekend who they had to get a train to France and then fly from Holland. So they'd gone missions. So I was very lucky to actually make it here.
Yeah, yeah, the last one I went to actually, the first and last one I was able to actually attend was 2018. So you might have been there for that one.
2018.
Yeah. I tell you what, that sport. Yeah. No, was it 18 or was it 19?
That's the one I went to. That's the one.
Yeah,
I went to. Yeah. Current Value was on, wasn't it?
Yeah. Sport Palace is ridiculous. Like the sound system's absolutely amazing. Like no matter where you are in that building, it just sounds amazing. And you've got the floating ceiling with the lights. It's just
they set the bar with the light show, don't they? And those moving lights, because they go down and up and stuff like that. They must weigh tons, those lights.
Yeah, it looks like the roof is like coming up and down. It looks insane.
Yeah.
I love it.
I definitely got some good videos there for that. But you run your own nights as well, don't you? You've got Subsequence in Melbourne, so there's no excuse to not have any neuro. You can book the Neuroheadz there whenever you want, guys.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. So this is what it's all about. Is about starting it, right? So you're gonna start something small and just sort of work our way up. So the first gig we ever put on, we actually got a guy, Killer Industries, who's released on a few pretty decent labels, Close to Death, who we're also releasing on soon, and a few other like pretty good labels, and he's just never played outside of Perth before, and Perth is obviously a massive hub for drum and bass, and that's kind of where it's at for Australia. But we were just like, he's never played, and he's been he's a nice guy, he's been doing it for a while, he just hasn't really done anything, been able to go anywhere for his music. So we're like, let's change this. So we made that happen for him, and that was really cool. But then, we've had a few other nights that have been planned, and like things have kind of fell through. So at the moment, we're just playing the slow game, because again, with tours and stuff like that in Australia, a lot of the time they're measuring up, was it worth going to Australia, or just go to New Zealand and then skip Australia, or just go to Perth and then go somewhere else. So it's a bit hard to sort of book everything and all that sort of stuff. And I've got a crew as well, and they're all awesome. And yeah, so basically we're still trying to work something out for the next gig. It's just whatever works. And it takes a while to sort of like, things don't just like land in our lap. Like in the UK, everything is available to you. Everyone wants to come and play in the UK, everyone from Europe and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. But we really want to get like a Neuroheadz night or something like that. It'd be really cool to get some of the regulars over here. And because know a lot of the other crews and stuff like that. So the plan is to work up to something like that. But we're at the moment, we're sort of taking it baby steps at the moment.
For sure. I mean, with the Australian drum and bass scene, and my experiences of it is there's a lot of originalists there. There's a lot of junglists there. I mean, you see Goldie play there hundreds of times. Like when I was at Afterlife, he was doing beach parties and that. He had about 10 gigs in one city in the 3 weeks that I was there. But one thing that is apparent as well is my journey into drum and bass started with neurofunk. That's when I loved it. And for me to get there, I was into hardstyle, I was into gabba. So when I actually put together a tour over in Australia, I was hitting up some of the hardstyle and gabba nights who actually had just started putting on like drum and bass rooms and things like that. And I played for some guy, Hugh, hope you're watching, mate. Absolutely love you. Mutilate events in Sydney. They are absolutely phenomenal promoters there. So they were doing like drum and bass and things like that as well. And I managed to just, like I say, put a bit of a tour together for it. But
yeah, nice.
Do you guys have original roots always in drum and bass? So you know, when did you get into that sound and where did it come from?
So I guess I'll quickly start for me. So I got into drum and bass in like 1997, but I didn't know what it was. It was Grand Theft Auto soundtrack. And I was like, what is this crazy music? I didn't even know. I was like, I loved it. It was like hardcore and drum and bass kind of thing. If you go back and listen to the soundtrack, it's on YouTube for free now, but it's one of the radio stations. I'm like, this is so cool, but I don't know what it is. So I was never able to like identify what it was. So I was just like, it's just game music. I like it. And then GTA 3 came along and MSXFM. I'm like, this is so cool. Like, what is this? You had like Helix on there. It was all the moving shadow stuff. I was like, again, I'm like, I really like this music, but I have no idea what it is. So my early experience with drum and bass is I loved it. I just didn't know what it was called. So yeah, and then it only came until 2007 after I finished high school. And you know, I had friends in the rave scene. We're all into hardstyle and stuff like that. And for a kick-on session, they put on Pendulum, and I was like, "What is this? What is this music? I love this!" And Ethan, my friend, who's Kiwi, he's like, "It's drum and bass." I'm like, "This is like the music that's me. It's like it's everything." But I was still into hardstyle and stuff like that for a while longer. But I would say in 2009, I hit it really hard because I like found Culture Shock. I got into like the cheesier side of drum and bass, and that's why I've got, you know, a bit of a soft spot for it. But I got into the cheesier stuff. So Sub Focus, Culture Shock, Shock One, which is from Perth as well, Pendulum, all that sort of stuff. And then I started really getting into drum and bass like big time in 2012. Finding all the Technic recording artists, you know, your L pluses, you know, Drum Sound, Bassline Smith, the Viper guys, Smooth, massive into Smooth. And then shortly after that, I found Neuro as well through Neuroheadz, Neurosphere, sorry, not Neuroheadz, Neurosphere, which was Xylent. He's not even doing drum and bass anymore. And Wreckage Machinery did this podcast and had all old Clamp stuff. Well, I was like, this is crazy, like old neurofunk from 2012. I still love that stuff. Like, it's not made like that anymore. All they have to do is like, I want that sound, but like, just make the drums better. That's the neurofunk that I really love because it's so energetic and it's so cool. But yeah, that's kind of where it's at for me with drum and bass. And then it just went out of control from there. And now, like, you know, I'm into all different styles and stuff like that now. But that's kind of what funneled me in. I was a metalhead when I was in high school, so neurofunk was a natural progression, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. What about yourself, Ross?
Yeah, so still I had exposure to it through game soundtracks, but then I was more into metal, black metal, experimental, and prog stuff. So I had a band, and then 2012, James invited me out to a rave to go see someone called Metric at a small pub in the city, and yeah, I was pretty much enamored with it straight away. So wrapped up metal about a year later, and just went further and further into drum and bass, starting with sort of melodic stuff, and then gradually progressing to heavier stuff until finding, you know, real affinity with that neuro sound.
Yeah, because we're nerds. We love sound design.
So when did you guys meet then to get together to put this project together?
Well, we first met through, I think my wife and my brother-in-law were friends or dating. Then we're introduced through just a random encounter between all of them. That would have been like 2007 or 2008.
2007, yeah.
And then for a couple of years, we just kind of like hung out here and there, talking music and tech and jamming on guitars. And it wasn't until a couple of years after that that we actually decided to get together and start producing drum and bass together.
It was kind of a natural progression because I was making random sort of band orientated electronic stuff, and he had a label that he kind of just, it was a Bandcamp label, but because he was doing some black metal stuff in a band, I was like, I'm going to do a one-man band thing that's like a mix of like every genre that I could possibly imagine. I'm not even going to tell you that project, but I made a release for it in 2012, and I was just like, I don't know where to put this, and he's like, just put it on my label on
yeah, I'll just chuck it up and
yeah,
take care of selling it.
and yeah, so it was just kind of like, so that was kind of the first sort of thing. But yeah, it was just I don't know, it just felt like a natural progression because we kind of arrived to the same kind of conclusion. We were like, not done with guitar, like it's still cool. We don't really use it, but there's just, because Ross was doing some sort of mixing for his band stuff, and he's like, I think he probably wanted to like get a bit more into the production side of things. And then as soon as the drum and bass came on, I was like, well, this is pure production. Like doesn't get much better than that. It sounds amazing. It's just so good. So that's, yeah. So he was curious enough about that. And then I was just like really getting into production in a big way as well, because I'd been tinkering with like FL Studio since I was in high school. But I really started getting into it proper in 2012, and it just, the stars kind of aligned, and it was like, let's just do this together because we both love it, and we're both, you know, really into sound design and doing things with, because and in the early days it was all about just recording everything from scratch, making everything from sine waves, like no samples, like literally like no, can't use samples, can't use presets, can't use packs. Just making everything from scratch, which is why it took us so long to get anything off the ground. But yeah, it's a fun process, right? It's all part of the learning experience.
And it looks like since like 2017 with your release on the Tech Collective, it's been full steam ahead. Obviously labels like Abducted, Close to Death, Expedite as well. Some really big labels taking your music on, hasn't there?
Yeah, actually, I'm really impressed with some of these newer neuro labels like yourselves and Expedite. Like you guys really pushing and doing some really cool stuff. So big ups to that. For you guys, it's really good to see neuro gaining traction in the UK, because I guess for quite a while it was like mainly jump up and commercial, right? And now, like I feel like I'm seeing that neuro is really gaining some proper traction. I mean, obviously you've got Close to Death who've been around, you know, Ian
they're the godfathers of it, aren't they? They've had everyone on their label. Everybody started off on Close to Death, and yeah, got a lot of respect for Ian Seizure, who runs that label as well. He's definitely one of the godfathers of neuro.
Yeah, it's a really good alumni coming through Close to Death. So it's nice to be on the same level as them.
Everybody's been on that one. Everybody, even I think I don't think there's one neuro artist who didn't start there. I mean, like Jade, even some of the new boys like Traced and things like that.
Yeah,
these all had cut their teeth on Close to Death. I feel
like that's Ian's claim to fame, is just like, okay, if there's a big artist that's out there, he's been on my label.
yeah. That's it, and it's worthwhile because he's given them all their chance, hasn't he? So it's nice to see that happening from inside the UK as well. So is there much? I mean, apart from you guys, your event, is there anything else in terms of like heavy neuro producers in Australia that you know of that's worth mentioning?
I mean, one of our close friends, Rory and Namian, you may have heard of him. So so he's there's some big things cooking there. I won't give anything away, but there's some big things cooking there with him. And yeah, he's an incredible producer. We've had a few guys coming out of Melbourne, I guess, like your Sapphire, and we've had like Oculi, were kind of getting big back in 2015, 14. But yeah, I guess most of the bigger artists were based in Perth. You know, you've got your there's been a few like crews that have kind of come and gone with regards to the neuro side of things, I guess, but because Inhibit's like this big monster that just they do all the big gigs there.
Give a shout out to Transformer.
Yep. Oh yeah, of course.
Neil.
Sorry, Neil.
Absolute legend.
Sorry. We had Neil on the last show as well. So yeah, Neil's an absolute legend. I've been working with him recently, getting some stuff together for the labels. So yeah, big up Neil. Obviously one of the greatest.
Yeah, he's only just moving back to Australia for a bit now, so because he was overseas for a while. So yeah, we're hoping to hopefully get him down at some stage soon. That would be really cool to get him down for that. And there's Dead Zodiac over in Perth. Absolute legend.
Yeah. Is Dead Zodiac still producing then? I've not heard anything from Dead Zodiac.
I think he and eSIM and Hello World, these are other artists from Perth, and they're all awesome as well. I feel like they're really focused on their production at the moment, because they were running gigs for a while there, and they also had a label, and they were just like, let's just focus on our music. And I totally get it. Like eSIM's doing some cool stuff. Yeah, and so Dead Zodiac, like I think they're really they're building the foundations for, I think, really pushing in the next couple of years. You know how it works. You got to build those foundations, get your sketches out, and then refine.
Yeah, Perth obviously rings a bell with me. That was the first place I ever played in Australia when I flew over there, and Adelaide. And that was in the noughties, the early noughties, when I went over. And I was actually doing hardcore music then. So as in like freeform, sharky, bonkers type of stuff. But that Adelaide and Perth seems to have always been kind of the hub for where the music grows from in Australia. It's like that is the side of Australia that picks it up first and brings it out. Have you guys ever been to any parties there or DJ'd there yourself across that side of Australia?
I've played in like 11 different cities in China, but I never played anywhere outside of Melbourne before in terms of Australia. Like, just never came up.
No, I've only stuck to Melbourne for our stuff.
Yeah. I mean, that is the place where a lot of the travelers go and stuff. So it's a lot more hustle and bustle. There's a lot more parties, but obviously it's like you say, it's the main music, and there's a lot of tech house in Melbourne and things like that. Isn't there?
Melbourne's like really the kind of roots has been really big in underground music. Like underground as in, your hard style, hardcore's not as big here. It's bigger in like Queensland and New South Wales for the most part. But yeah, exactly. That's what's huge. They have the absolutely crazy big parties with like 10,000 people. Like we don't get things like that here.
A lot of the Dutch promoters brought all their parties over to Sydney and things, didn't they? Obviously with hard bass and things like that as well.
Yeah, all the Chew Dance guys. Yeah.
Right, let's get into the first track, guys. This is a listening party for the brand new release on Neuroheadz. So we are going to start with Overton Window. So Overton Window, what an absolute slammer. This one's out today on Neuroheadz. We'll start with you, Ross. Tell us a little bit about what went into this track to get it on Neuroheadz.
So I think this track, we've been working on this sort of style that we've been refining over the last sort of 12 to 18 months of incorporating sort of psytrance elements into our tunes. So the bass line is sort of taken from that sort of simple saw waves with a sort of rhythmic pattern, and then those leads, again, pulling from real psytrance elements, and then trying to bring that all together with kind of, I guess, a critical slant in a political kind of a way. So we started this nearly a year ago now. We've just been slaving away at it, trying to get all of these crazy things working together.
Excellent. Are you using any hardware at all in your productions, or is it just all software? Because it sounds there's some very nice warm leads in this. You've obviously been working a while. There we go. I knew it. Absolutely beautiful track.
Virus sounds in there as well. Like, yeah, there's a lot of field recordings and stuff like that in there that have just been completely morphed and manipulated into something that's just completely different, which is we do like quite a bit of as well. Yeah,
that's probably the big thing that we use a lot, is incorporating field recordings in ways where we're just using the sounds as is, or we're twisting them so they're becoming pads or leads and stabs, and just completely removed from what they originally were.
And I like that you mentioned, obviously, the psytrance elements in it. Maybe a little bit of influence there from, obviously, that being a big sound in Australia. But again, that might appeal as well to a bit. I think it would appeal to a brighter audience, obviously, listening to that as well, because you do get some 170 BPM psytrance. So I can't see why they wouldn't like this track.
Yeah, like the forest stuff. Melbourne's really big on its it's bush doofs, as we call them, which is
So you guys obviously have a lot of interest as well that's all around the arts outside of work. I think you've got a project, haven't you, at the moment, James, Kinematics? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so kinematics, or how you can pronounce it however you want, but kinematics is the word, its spelling is kind of weird and whatever. It's just like took a word. It's like the word kinematics is the study of like robotic movement. But for me, kinematics is like probably about a 12 years worth of just mucking around with photos and stuff like that. In fact, some of the earliest manipulations of like kind of what I do now, it was heavily inspired by like Ross and I used to muck around with, like, there was an Android, the Samsung photo editing tool had this weird filter on it, or like that turned things into like this weird painty stuff. So we used to take the randomest photos of just anything that looked like just strange stuff and just manipulate it into strange stuff. That was like kind of some of the early day stuff. And every time I used to edit photos, I used to make them look like you're basically on who knows what, like crazy colors, just things that are out of control. And so over the years, I've kind of refined my my editing for photos and stuff like that. And it got to a point where I was like kind of bored with photography, and I was just like, I could do something more interesting here. So, and then I started basically taking photos and chopping them up into tiny little bits and like rearranging, spinning, mirroring, doing all sorts of stuff, and spending like a few days basically like color grading and doing all sorts of stuff. So yeah, it's all digital art basically, which is kind of funny because I think it started to get to a point where it's actually starting to look good. And then Midjourney comes along and it's like, hey, hey, I'm AI. I'm going to make your art irrelevant. But
we've had a lot of conversations about AI, me and my friends, and I don't know. I mean, I get it. I like the use of it just for a quick and easy thing, but I don't think it's ever going to take away the human job. It's same with the music thing. It's completely and utterly lacking soul. All it can do is copy. It can't invent. So I think you'd be safe with that. I mean, obviously it's a massive other conversation we can have, but it doesn't. All it's doing is taking elements of what's already out there. It's never been inventive. It's just
correct. Yeah, I would say
remixing.
So hopefully you're right. But yeah, I've spent a lot of time. I've got quite a few photos to work with. Like I can only use a DSLR for it because it's one of these things where I work in such high resolutions. You can zoom all the way in. A few of them are NFTs, and I'm selling stuff on Redbubble, and I'm building my own website at the moment with the help of ChatGPT. So hey, I don't hate you, AI. You're actually a friend, but
Yeah, you definitely have to send me some of the Redbubble links as well. I'll put some of our merch on there as well. So it'd be good to see what you've come up with. Absolutely.
Yeah, cheers.
And you do a bit of film photography, don't you, Ross? I believe you've got a YouTube channel. What's all this about?
Yeah. So it's called Bow Life. And I think over the last 18 months, I've focused primarily on film. I've shot film for about 10 years or so now. And then I stopped around 2020 because I stopped going outside for obvious reasons. And then, about this time last year, I was just looking at it like I've got this enormous pile of film. I'm like, why don't I actually shoot that and then just piece it all together by doing POV videos and just showing people what it looks like and just working my way through this huge pile of film that I've got there. So just doing it all from scratch, the filming, the developing of the film, the music and the editing, just piecing that all together to make a couple of videos and create some memories that way.
Brilliant. So yeah, we'll put the links to both of these in the comments so people can check some of your other work out. I think it'd be very interesting to do. So yeah, I think it's time to listen to another track, guys. What do you reckon? Let's get straight into Deep State.
Sounds good to me.
owning out the release for Neuroheadz out today. Window Overton and, of course, Deep State. Now, Deep State, automatically when I saw this track, I was thinking of, like, I don't know, the name reminded me of, I don't know, Jack Bauer conspiracy theory type stuff, things like that. You know, the new series Rabbit Hole that is in that I'm really enjoying. I don't know, that name definitely give off those vibes. Where did you come up with the name?
So, I mean, I consume a lot of very political content, which I won't really get into.
I knew it.
It's not tinfoil hat stuff. It's all very well researched. But there's a few. You'll hear it laced throughout all of our music. Like, you got people like Peter Joseph, who's in a lot of the things. A lot of our tracks, like the vocal samples, are pulled from YouTube because it's licensed. Don't have to worry about any licenses. But a lot of very thought-provoking things that people say. And yeah, there's a journalist called Ben Norton, and there's a big long tangent at the end in the last phrase at the end of Deep State, and you'll hear basically like him going off about what the deep state is. You know, it's not some crazy conspiracy. It's a very real concept that's very important for you to understand. Anyway, I've heard it so many times that I could just rattle it off. But yeah, it's it basically, that's kind of like, I thought it was kind of fun. And you know, it's funny because like the monkey on the artwork has got like the Illuminati eye on his hat and stuff like that, which is really fun. And it's the same like swirl, like the Neuroheadz style. So yeah, I think it worked really well. And yeah, that's just very typical of our music. It's got like these sort of little messages in there, and whatever people want to attach it to, we're all for.
Brilliant. So the next release is probably going to be called 5G then, is it? Is that
we haven't gone, we don't get into that. Actually,
that's another podcast.
It's kind of funny because so Daniel, the guy who runs Unchained in China, we were mucking around and we made we were just mucking around, but it was like David Icke, I think is his name, real conspiracy theorist over there in the UK. Talking about 5G, and we just slapped it in there. We're like, because he was just kind of laughing and like, yeah, let's just roll with it.
So you talk about China. Obviously, we brought this up a couple of times, and we were talking about this just before the show as well. Me and you seem to have been in a lot of places at the same time before we've even known each other over the last couple of months. So you were touring, DJing in China around 2019. Is that right?
Yeah, so I only got back to Australia. So I was living over there for 5 years. So I only just got back at the start of last year, just as Melbourne was coming out of lockdowns and just before China went into their crazy lockdowns. So I kind of avoided most of the lockdowns, which is kind of ridiculous. But yeah, it was really interesting living over there. I was living in Shenzhen, just near Hong Kong. Unchained was like basically the ground of all drum and bass in South China, and yeah, it was an amazing experience being able to DJ with them, touring around like all over China, like playing. I got invited again this year, but I think I'll probably go next year instead once everything's all ironed out with everything here. But yeah, it was an amazing experience living over there, watching the Chinese drum and bass scene go from nothing to like basically, you go to the club. At the time, it was like there was a few clubs that were like trying it, but it was always like a room two. The other room was playing like hardstyle, and then people would wander in and be like, I don't know what this music is, and wander out. The first club to really like create something was Oil Club, is Oil Club. They're still going, and because they've got an amazing sound system, and Huiyang Yang, the people who run it, are really cool people, like really alternative, really fun, and it's almost like they spared no expense. Like the sound system was just amazing. The sound pressure level was really high though. So good luck walking around in there without earplugs and, not getting tinnitus when you walk out. But yeah, it sounded amazing. And it was able to create a culture there enough for people to just keep coming back. And it went from like 20 people to like 300 and no one can move. So I watched that progression from nothing to what it became, which was really fun. It was a shame that the pandemic had such an effect on it there, but yeah, it was just amazing being part of that experience and being part of the growth there for it as well.
For sure. What made you go there in the first place to spend 5 years there?
I guess I was just like had a career job, was just kind of like I really wanted to focus more on my music and my art, and I was just like I had no time to do it between work, and I was working a few jobs or whatever, and just like spend all the time with my girlfriend and all that sort of stuff, and not really enough time on music that I really wanted to really move music along. And I had a friend who lived over there, and he was just like, come over here, like you can teach English, and it's actually like it's pretty good. And the rent's cheap and money goes a lot further, and you're like halfway already if you want to go to Europe, which I ended up doing, like doing several Europe trips a year essentially while I was over there. And yeah, it was just like I just was like kind of sick of like the 9-to-5 grind, I suppose. I ended up grinding 9 to 5 anyway, but like more like 6 till 10 p.m. 6 a.m. till 10 p.m. like doing my own thing. But so it was actually more hard work, but it was good. No, it was good. It was just opportunities. Like there was just like the world's your oyster over there. Like you can take an idea that's already established in the West, and you can go there and like, make it a thing that works within their ecosystem and stuff like that. So there's a lot of opportunities over there. And it was just a really fun experience. And I'm really glad that I did it.
I feel like when I was over in China as well, it dispelled a lot of the kind of takes that people have on it, how scary it is. And I've said this many a time, it's probably one of the most positive musical experiences I've had traveling across China and playing at clubs there and meeting people. I mean, there is a couple of things. I mean, it's scary how many people don't speak English. You kind of expect them to, but they don't. So you do have to kind of learn a bit of the Chinese lingo and how to communicate there. And also, forget about Google and Facebook. You've got to download their apps. If you want to speak to people, you need to be on the Chinese versions of that. That was very daunting, but once you got used to it, it was okay.
Or as they say, jump the wall, get a VPN. That's what they do there. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, it does help to have the Chinese versions, though. It definitely doesn't.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a hard language to learn.
Yeah, very hard language. Yeah, I got by. Sorry, go on.
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say when he was living over there, we just said, fuck it, we'll just use WeChat.
Yeah. Best one to use, isn't it? Definitely. I still speak to people today on WeChat. I still use it regular for all my Chinese friends. So what about yourself, Ross? Obviously, in terms of all this traveling that James has been doing, you went down the route I did over the last few years and sprung up a few kiddies, didn't you?
I did, yeah. So we had about 5 years that you were in China, where Fractal One was Fractal One. And
he's actually fractured Fractal One.
Fract alone. Because I was alone.
But yeah, so I've got 2 kids, a nearly 3-year-old and a newborn. So that weirdly helps with time management, because you put such a high value on the small amount of time that you do get to throw all of it at the music that you're doing, and just be really focused on getting stuff done as quickly as possible. I
know the feeling too well. I'm on the clock now. I'm waiting for that text message to come through to say, come on, we're going. But yeah, it's you do have to plan things a lot more thoroughly, but I think it's possible, especially if you love doing music like myself and you do.
Yeah, exactly. You find a way to make it work with the time that you've got, and you become a lot more efficient with your time management and how you work that into what you're doing.
And you actually know what day and time it is, whereas I could get lost working on a tune for like 3 days and be like, oh, I haven't eaten.
Yeah, there's none of that anymore. You'll see one day, James. It's definitely an eye-opener to knowing how unplanned your life has been for the whole time you've been alive. Listen, guys, it's been a pleasure today. We've got through 2 awesome tracks. I cannot wait for people to hear these 2 tracks. If you haven't got them already, make sure you're downloading on Beatport and you are streaming on Spotify. Add it to your playlist. This is very important for us as a label and as the artist Fractal One. Also, we want to make sure this music is out there. And of course, Spotify is completely free. So get it on loop if you can every single day. That's what we look for. So I'll leave you with how I should have probably started the show in the correct Australian greeting. And I'll say goodbye the Australian way. Goodbye, cunts.
Cheers, cunts.
Cheers, cunts.
Thanks, guys. It's been a pleasure having you on the show, by the way. Cannot wait for everyone to grab this release. Make sure you're getting it on Beatport and Spotify. This is Lee UHF over and out for Talkin Headz.